when I was working on the second book, I was totally done with the first one. I was writing the second one. I was actually, my family and I, we'd gone on a very long vacation. We were in New Zealand. And I had been working on, working around in my head for like a year while I was working on the first book, what the second book would be about. And I knew I wanted to introduce a new character who was going to be like this sorceress girl, like this little witch. You remember the book is the one where all the creatures and characters are falling in and out of portals, and the kids got to send them back, and at the end they fight
I haven't read the second book.
You skipped the second book and went on to the third?
By accident.
Well, okay.
Spoiler alert.
This won't exactly come as a surprise.
Hi, Mom. The second book is arriving tomorrow from Amazon because I thought it was a nice gift for him for the end of school.
How you doing, Amy?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How's Pittsburgh?
Anyway,
we're not in Pittsburgh.
Well, we're near Pittsburgh.
You're close enough.
Close enough.
Yeah.
So you were asking about.
Okay, so I was working on the second book, and I had this idea about introducing this new character who's going to be a witch, and I'd been working it out in my head for like a year, and then when I was actually sitting down and writing it, I was starting to have a really hard time with it. I wasn't enjoying the character very much. Meanwhile, my daughter, who was just about maybe 5 at the time, kept bugging me to put a cat in the book. She kept saying, like, Daddy, you should put a cat in the book. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Like, no, really, it'll be a much better book if you put a cat in the book. Like, okay, fine, I'll put a cat in the book. But I honestly, I was pretty much just ignoring her. And then, as I was struggling with this character, this little witch character, and I started thinking about the idea of putting a cat in, I said, wait, what if this little girl, what if this witch character, what if she was an anthropomorphic cat? Meaning like a talking cat. Anthropomorphic means characters who like act like people, like Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse and all the characters in Zootopia. So I thought it'd be fun if she was an anthropomorphic cat. And when I did that, it all kind of came together, including that when I started writing her, I totally figured out her personality, and she was small and she was loud and she was Scottish. I don't know why she was Scottish, but that was the voice I heard in my head. So this is Polly. So I'm talking about Polly. So when I came up with Polly, I had so much fun with her. I decided to bring her back to the next book. And that's when I hatched the idea, like it'd be fun if like there's a whole tribe of talking animals. Because one, I like drawing anthropomorphic animals. And two, it'd be fun if there'd be a bunch of them. And that's where that came from. So blame my daughter mostly, because it was mostly her idea.
So, Judd, are you going to do anything animation-wise with the book at all? Have you had any offers for anything?
We're hoping. The short version is that we probably could have sold the rights a while ago.
Yeah.
But I want to write it.
Yeah.
So I'm attached to it. So it took me a couple of years actually to work out a pitch that I was happy with. And now we have to go out to people who have to meet me because, they're basically not just buying the rights, they're buying
you.
They're buying this idiot too. So they want to know, and they don't know me. So, so sooner than later than sooner, we'll see. I'm not terribly worried. I know we could probably do it as an animated TV program. No problem.
Yeah.
That could be a quick sale, but I want to try selling it as a feature if we could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you. You should. Yeah, good.
It'd be fun.
I kind of assumed, I figured that you had, I figured you had to have had some people that would be interested in the book. So, it's a good thing. So you're living the dream.
Yes. I live like a 10-year-old.
So,
Julian, you have a question? There's 2 hands up.
That was one of my questions.
Which is what?
If it was going to be a TV
If it was going to be a TV series.
Yeah, well, maybe TV series or a movie. I'm going to try to do a movie first because honestly, because I haven't done one of those. I made a television show and I've worked in TV animation before. I've written and produced for TV, and that's fun. But I've never actually done a feature, and I kind of want to try to do that. In a lot of ways, for me, it would be easier to do it as a TV show because it in a lot of ways the story is so big. It's easier to tell it over the course of a TV series. But I want to try to do it as a movie. We'll see.
Yeah, you've done the TV thing too, so it's like you should try for the feature and see how it goes.
I just want to roll the dice. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I don't blame you. I think, you know, when Kunkel comes on, you know that with Herobear, he had sold that to Universal, and he went through,
Yes.
you know, he probably has some cautionary tales for you with that. I'm sure the business has changed, but it took him 10 years to get those rights back from Herobear.
Yeah, he went through all kinds of holy heck for a very, very long time.
He went through,
It's rough. Yeah.
So yes, he did. Another guy that was going to join us was James Burks. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He has a book called Bird and Squirrel, but
yes, I know Bird and Squirrel. Sure.
He backed out. So I don't know. He had some. It's weird because he lives right by me. Like, you know, Mike and I know him really well. We worked on a project together for Disney, but he just kind of said he wanted to do it, and then he was like, yeah, I think he was bummed out. I think I don't know, like something happened. So it was very weird.
Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of like, oh, poor James. So I was kind of excited to have you guys like talk and meet and BS, but you know, maybe some other time. So. But he's really talented guy. You know, you guys are all like, I just find that stuff so amazing when you're, you know, doing it. Julian, I'm sorry, I'm taking your time to ask questions. You ask all the questions.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Ask him. Next one.
Are there any secrets in your books?
Are there any secrets in my books?
Like Easter eggs.
A ton, but I'm drawing a blank. Let's see. There's a Hilo's fake robot uncle is Uncle Trout. And if you look at him, he's actually a caricature of my favorite author, Kurt Vonnegut. And Kurt Vonnegut used to. Basically, he would put himself in his books. There'd be a character in the book who is a kind of a grumpy author who was named Kilgore Trout. So when Kurt Vonnegut put himself in the books, the character he would play would be Kilgore Trout. So that's one. So Uncle Trout is in there. Let's see. There's always funny posters on the wall. You know, stuff I love. Everything from like Hamilton to, well, any other. Hamilton we got permission for. Apparently, I just put it up there, and then they checked with legal, and legal checked with the Hamilton folks, who like said, "Oh, that's okay."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, no, they were actually cool about it. I didn't even know they even checked. I just thought they let it ride. Let's see, in the Hilo universe, if you look at, let's see, 1, 2, 3, the fourth book, there's posters up at a military facility. Well, when you're at the military facility, they always hang portraits of the president. But Hillary Clinton is the portrait that is up at all the military facilities in Hilo. Because it's like I get to do what I want.
That's right. God, if only. Judd, I'd like to live in that. You know that they're thinking now. There were particles that were light particles that were coming, and scientists have been studying them, and they're coming the opposite direction from where they were like, and there's no real explanation. So like, yeah, there might be a parallel universe. There might be I'm like,
yeah, well, I think they say a parallel universe is running in reverse. They say something like that?
Yeah, that's what they said. Yeah. Right, exactly. They said it's running in reverse.
Yeah.
So it's running in reverse.
I didn't bother to read it because I knew, I was like, I'm not sure I'm even going to understand that. It's like,
yeah,
does it mean like everyone goes Benjamin Button? What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they're cavemen, so I don't know.
Yeah,
it's good. Yeah, I don't know either. Look who joined us. It's Mike Kunkel. It's lovely and talented Mike Kunkel.
How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. I feel like I just got smarter listening to the last couple minutes.
You're living in a parallel universe, buddy. So how's
the
it
last
feel?
thing you want is the Benjamin Button the theory applied to me. That's not what you want to happen. I would have Judd just carrying me around in a front like onesie, so I could just hang there
like a baby, like a little baby. Is that your office?
I was gonna say, is that the home studio?
It's a space I keep that's about 2 miles from home.
Oh,
okay.
I because you're in. That's right.
Notes.
I was there. You're still there. It's still your office that you
Give
have.
me somewhere to go, and I actually did classes out of it, but it just gives me a place to sort of set up, and I've got cartoonists all over the walls and everything, and a big giant Herobear head back there.
I'm glad you joined us. I'm glad you're able to you and Judd both are able to move some time around. So it's good to see you. So
Thank you for having us.
yeah, usually I do these on Wednesday, so I don't know who will be joining, but we're taping, so we'll put this up. If you guys don't mind, we'll throw it up on YouTube, and you can promote.
And I didn't know. So is this a live feed, and people are hopping on as well?
Yeah, some people are. Some of my students, I send out a thing for them, so if they have questions, they can ask. But if not, there's a few people here. Sydney is here. She's a big Herobear fan. Arthur is from Brazil, so he's joining us from Brazil.
Hello.
So,
Howdy.
So, and people start jumping in. Everybody's muted, but everybody's really good. They have questions, they'll throw it into the chat stuff, and we can kind of look at it and go from there. And talk.
Sure.
So Julian, do you have anything you want to ask Judd right now to wrap to ask one final question before we get started?
Ooh, go ahead. Yeah, go for it. Whatever it is.
I have a couple more.
No, just one more.
Lightning round.
Gotta be it.
Go on, I'll go fast. Go on, hit me. Lightning round.
Lightning round. Yeah.
It's not my first rodeo. Go on, bring it.
I know quick isn't your thing, but
How long does it take to write a Hilo book?
It takes about a year to do the whole thing from front to back. About a year. I'd say about at least 10 months for me, and then about maybe 3-4 months for my colorist. It's the one thing I don't do. I don't color. Next one, hit me.
Oh, there is something strange at the beginning of the first book in DJ's room.
Mm-hmm.
There are like posters of like what looks like Hilo, because there is like someone shooting lasers from his hands, and it looks like Hilo from far away.
Oh, I actually, okay, I don't know exactly what you're talking about. What I probably did is there's probably posters of robots or superheroes on his walls who are shooting lasers out of his hands. So it's a little bit of foreshadowing, that one of the things we learned about DJ is that he's a big comic book nut. So it's, him sort of accidentally stumbling upon a new best friend who winds up being a superhero is part of it too. So yeah, that was no accident.
Do you know what foreshadowing means, Julian?
No.
Well, they are like little hints in the story that that's what they are. They're hints of what's going to be coming up in the story. They come out in different ways, shapes, or forms. It doesn't necessarily tell you what's going to happen, but they give you a little bit of sense, like, oh, this might be important later. This might be coming up later.
So when you see Hilo shooting lasers out of his hands, then you're like, oh, okay, it was foreshadowing for what you set up prior in the scene. Yep.
Right.
So.
I had to read it a couple times before I noticed on the walls of DJ's room that the poster was there that looked like Hilo.
That's good to know. Yeah, I try to make it fun and put fun things in the background. I really do. Like I just finished the 7th book a couple of months ago. And for the first time we go to Gina's room for a long period of time. And I was putting lots of posters up in her room too, like good ones, important ones. Because your posters tell you a little bit something about who you are, about your character. You learn more about them by what they put up their walls.
Is there gonna be an 8th book?
Yeah. I'm actually finishing the first book of a whole new series. And I hope to be done with that, the first draft next month, and then I'll start working on Hilo number 8. I definitely have a total of 6 more Hilo books planned so far.
That's a scoop there, Julie.
A story of 3, and then a story of 3 more after that for sure.
Starting from 8? Or is it going to end
8, 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, then 3 more after that. No, 7, 8, 9, and then 3 more after that. So total of 6. 6 that you have not seen yet. How's that put? There are 6 out, and there'll be 6 more. I can say it a couple of different ways if I need to.
There'll be 12 total. Is that what you're saying?
So far. That's what I have the ideas for.
All
They couldn't give me more than that.
Julian, you're a tough interview, man. You're getting some good scoops over here, buddy.
That's pretty awesome to know there's a lot more coming. That's awesome.
Yeah. So there you
that's
go.
great. That's great.
I thought it would go up to 20.
Well, maybe Judd will.
That would be enough to make like a pretty long movie.
I'll tell you the truth. When I first started doing the series, my editor, her name is Shayna Corey, she asked me, how many books do you think are going to be in the series? And I said, I'm thinking like 20, you know, and by the end of the 20, we'll find out the mystery of who Hilo is and where he comes from. And she said, well, okay, so that's a healthy idea. Her one note is that she kind of wants to get to the mystery of who Hilo is and where he comes from sooner. But she also pointed out that if a 10-year-old was reading the first Hilo book, by the time I got to 20, if I average about a book a year, they would be 30 years old by the time I was done. So that's when I said, oh, okay, let me think about this. And I came back like, how about 6? She goes, 6 is good. 6 sounds fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So well, maybe Mike and I will do an animated series, and Mike and I will get them off for you, Judd. We'll move them along for you.
That works for me. No problem there.
So Julian, are you gonna hang around for a little bit, or you got bedtime?
Bedtime's pretty flexible in the days of Corona.
All right.
Hang out.
That's what
That's
we found.
good.
Yes.
All right.
Hang
You
out.
All right.
hang out. So,
I'm
all
gonna
right.
go get a book.
There you go. So we're gonna. Thanks, Julian. So we're gonna get started. So welcome everybody. So tonight, my very special guest. I'm Dave Klistic, and nobody cares about me. But my special guest.
Oh, come now.
I'm kidding. My special guests are a man who is a legend in the business. They're both legends actually in the business. And Judd, you have written some amazing stuff over the years, my friend.
Thank you.
Under the Red Hood is my favorite Batman movie ever.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm proud to say that my friend wrote it. Like, that's always kind of nice to be able to say, like, yeah, I know that guy. So, I really, really love that film. But not only that, one of my other favorite shows, The Life and Times of Juniper Lee. You created that show.
Thank you, sir.
And you have an amazing book series, Hilo. And, you're just a force. And not only that, I mean, how many DC comics have you? I mean, you resurrected Jason Todd. So
First Thunder. First Thunder.
First Thunder.
It is still one of my favorites. Yeah.
That is
between the two of them. That's pretty much that was my top 2 right there.
That's one of my favorites. Superman and Shazam. Yep.
Yeah, that's
all right.
Right up the top.
This other guy here is another legend. The creator of Herobear. Mike, how many years of Herobear? What are we celebrating here?
We're at our 20th anniversary.
All right.
Wow.
We're going to talk about
we're at 20 years. So
we are going to talk about that because
I only wish I had done 20 books.
Well,
but we've done a lot.
And Mike is also an animator who's worked on many, many movies, including Cats Don't Dance. You, Mike, I can't even list your credits because there's so many of them. So, you worked with me on Juniper Lee and Judd. You were just recently on Garfield, right? Are you still on Garfield?
Wrapping it up this week, actually. Or next one more week. Yeah. So we're wrapping that up.
So we'll talk about all of this stuff. So, and thank you, Arthur. He said Juniper Lee was amazing. We thought so too, right? Yeah, we thought so too.
That was
Arthur,
a dream project.
Is Arthur calling in from Brazil?
He is. Arthur is here joining us from Brazil.
Juniper Lee's big in Brazil. Juniper Lee is huge in Brazil.
Really?
It is. I'm sorry to laugh. I only found this. Yeah, I only found this out within the last year. It was a giant hit in Brazil. A lot of young people around Arthur's age grew up on it. It was a big show. I didn't know about it until Twitter.
Wow.
We need a Juniper Lee convention down there.
That's what I'm saying. Works for me. I was
go.
planning on some crap before we were all sheltering in place. We'll see. As soon as we're out of this.
Yeah.
An excuse to go to Brazil.
There you go.
Yeah. What, 15 years? Is it 15 years?
It is 15 years. Yeah.
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 Wow.
My son was born the day before the show premiered.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, I remember Jay telling me like, yeah, next time you're supposed to like spread out your life-changing events. You know, you don't sandwich them in all like in one place.
That 1 week. You only got 1 week. Get it all
There's
done.
a lot. There's a lot.
So, well, so anyway, I'm honored to have both of you guys. You're
happy
not
to be here,
only
sir.
super talented guys, but two of my favorite people. So,
Happy to be here.
so I'm glad you're able to join us. So we have a little bit of a mini reunion going on here with Juniper from Juniper Lee. Arthur, what are you saying? There's two other people here from Brazil. Oh,
Yes.
all right.
Representing. I love this.
Wow. All right.
Awesome.
All right. I'll have to
That's
show
awesome.
some. I have some stuff. I don't know how much I have. I have Alan Bodner's color inspiration board that off for the title sequence. I have that.
Nice.
And I think I have my roughs. I may be wrong. I may have the board. I mean the storyboard for the title sequence too. So most of my stuff is all paper and pencil. So it's all unfortunately buried and in the vault somewhere. So
No, me too.
yeah.
No, I've got stuff.
Good.
I'm pretty sure that I don't know if they're originals. Some of them might be originals. I think I stole a couple of. It's been 15 years, statute of limitations. I stole a couple of storyboards. I think I have a couple of the originals.
We won't tell anybody.
Mike, I think there's a couple that you laid hands on that I made sure to get. Dave, there's definitely one of yours for sure.
Mm.
I'm trying to remember a couple of the others. I just swiped. I had to have them. I mean, I was literally told like, no, those belong to the company. You can't take them. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
You're like, I'm the creator of the show.
I'll make sure not to do that as I pack up these boxes.
Yeah.
I'll make sure not to take anything that I'm not supposed to.
Well, if you didn't, I would have given them to you anyway. So if they wouldn't have let you have them, I would have made sure you got a couple. I don't think they know what's Xeroxed and what's originals. So
I don't think they know where any of that is today.
I'll bet. Oh no, that's probably all.
Well, mid-show we went digital. You know,
Right.
you actually we were still on paper.
Yeah.
And you know, the Wacom tablets came into the building by our.
I
second
had a
season?
tablet. I had a tablet PC. I was drawing on it for a little bit. I remember I got that.
Yeah.
That was
I was the only
version
board
of it.
guy doing board because Kelsey Mann and I were. Kelsey, who is head of story up at Pixar now, but he was he and I were very good friends, and he was like, hey, like you know, you should think about going digital. So he introduced me to a program called Mirage. So I told you guys, I told Janet Diamond, who was Janet the producer at that time? Or
Yes, she was.
Sharina?
Janet was. Janet.
Okay.
Janet was, and Sharina was for the last season. Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, we'll give you a tablet if you want it. And I still remember everybody came around and watched me like it was like, ooh, what is this new technology that you have?
You were so happy. I do remember, like you kept saying, like, "What do you?" So you enjoying? Like, I love it. I remember you just saying, "I love it."
It was, yeah, it was different because you didn't have to, you know, you could work. You didn't have, you know, you guys know it now. Like you didn't have to go to the Xerox machine to reduce things. You know, if you had to change something, you could just scale everything down, and you didn't have to worry about that kind of crap of the copier. That was
you could flip, you could move, you could edit, you could go to the model kit and grab, you know, like I don't want to draw this monster right now. I don't have to. I'm just gonna put him in the background. Boom, there you go.
Yeah.
You know, and it's on model. It was good stuff.
Yeah. If I only knew then what
ages.
what I know now, I'd have been. We could have done like 5 shows a month with what I know now.
What a door that was opened.
Yeah, what a door. So, but yeah, I mean, it was.
I don't know if this is interesting to anybody listening. We're just.
Oh no, I think so. Well, most of these people that are here, a lot of them take my class. I teach a storyboarding class, so you know, they're people who want to get into storyboarding and people who. You know, so no, I'm sure they find it fascinating with talking about it.
What currently is the app that you're doing storyboards on? What is the go-to?
Storyboard Pro.
It's just Storyboard Pro. Okay.
Yeah.
It's either Storyboard Pro or Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both. It's kind of the two. There may be the occasional off one that does, we just do it in Flash, or we're doing it in this, but really those are the two.
Most people most studios out here, most are Storyboard Pro for television production.
Yeah.
DreamWorks has like a proprietary one that they use, which is different. So personally, I love.
And they're split sometimes. I've been on two separate projects. That one was all Photoshop, and the other one was only Storyboard Pro, and it was just the battle of the wills. And it was just it was whatever who was leading that project felt comfortable with.
Well, you have to know both. I think
today you got to
know both. Yeah, you have to know both. But
and can you practically like cut your own animatic? Can you actually see the flow? I mean, like just hit pop and play. I mean, the timing isn't what you want it to be, but you can like more than
pretty
the gist
close.
of what you're looking at.
Yeah,
Pretty close.
Oh yeah,
Amazing.
Yeah.
And that's there's a good and bad to that. The good of it is if it was your own thing, that's awesome. You can make it look like that. But if you're boarding on something else and you've got to do boards and time it out in the same amount of time that you normally would just be drawing, you got to leave time for timing it out as well. And that's an extra thing that's put on the board artists nowadays on some shows.
Are you all expected to hand in your sections as animatics?
Yeah.
Loosely timed, yeah. Yes,
Wow.
board artists are being asked to do that in TV, not in features, but in TV. You know, there have been projects where you turn in. You know, look, Dave and I were working on a project where the board artists on that were handing us, loosely timed, and obviously you had a radio play, so you could play off of that. You could time it to that.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're still turning in something, and that has to be part of your sort of allotted time of boarding schedule. You know, it's not just drawing and turning in boards.
Yeah,
you mean an editor? It's crazy.
Yeah, and so it gets a little tricky, But again, if you get to know it very well, then the opportunity is there to do your own thing. And a lot of us, we had that conversation where we sit there and we go, 40 years ago, and I'm being generous in the time, but J Ward Studios, and they're doing Rocky and Bullwinkle, and it's an entire studio that's doing those shorts and those cartoons. You could do it all yourself today.
One guy,
and a lot faster.
Yeah.
You could produce all those same cartoons. Now you need the writing, you need the humor, and what came from it was the chemistry of everybody. But the amazing thing is, you could produce all those yourselves.
Well, I mean, there's a pro and con to that. Like, in saying that, it actually makes me sad to think like one guy could do the job of like 5 people or 10 people and faster. And also thinking about the time that they had to do everything and craft it and everything. Yeah. So actually, I don't know if I think that's it's good that the technology exists. It's bad because we don't get any more time.
Yeah, that's the thing. You still, if you had 4 weeks to do a board, you still have 4 weeks to board, except now you're expecting your board artist to time stuff out on some level. And so it's still handed to you as a director to go, I'll refine that and time it, but at least you're giving it to me in some form.
Judd, did you, I'm assuming is the writer of Batman. Who directed it? Was it Sam? Or no, it was Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon. Yeah.
They just had their own. You didn't have any input, I'm assuming, with the boards or anything at that point. Right?
No, nothing like that at all. But I will say it was really very, very tight off what my script was. It was really, I was not watching like, oh crap, I can't believe they did that. I mean, literally, like there's like a line or two or a couple of things that they changed, but no, I was not a producer. I was like, I was the writer. Yeah. I mean, I will say that, it came out of the fact that, I came to them and pitched it. It was right after Batman Dark Knight, me and Chris Nolan. Yeah. And I'd heard rumblings that DC was looking to do something a little grittier, a little grimmer. And so I called Gregory Novak, who was at the company at the time and who I knew for a number of years. I was like, listen, I want to pitch you Red Hood. And I basically just, I pitched, beginning with the teaser, because the problem of it was that to tell the Red Hood story, for those who are playing at home, it's the story of the resurrection of Jason Todd, who was the second Robin who was killed by Joker. Now, the problem being in this story is that there was a whole other story where Robin died. And
Yeah.
you had to cover that to get to him coming back. So
You did a great job. It was great.
That was
Yeah.
the one problem when I just figured out, like, oh, we'll just kill him off in the teaser.
It was masterful because it didn't, like, that was the thing. Like, it wasn't, you got right to the point. Like, it was, I mean, honestly, like, it really is. It's my favorite Batman movie out of any live action or animated. I don't think anybody, because the story, you had such a tight structure to it. Like, everything flowed. There were no filler. There was nothing in there that was fat that needed to be trimmed out of there. I taught Brandon, so I'll take credit for how wonderful. No, I'm kidding. I did teach him, though. I did teach him back in the Kubert School way back when.
No kidding, really?
Yeah, he was a student
fantastic.
of mine way back. He was the Kubert's, the Wizard scholarship winner for the Kubert School. He was the first one.
No.
So he got a lot of grief. He got a lot of grief from people. He's a sweet guy. Like, I really like Brandon. Really, really, really good guy. Good guy. So
It was great. It was an amazing working experience.
So
it was really terrific.
I taught him everything he knows. So that's, I'm just saying. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Brandon, if you see this, like, he'll be like, like, no, yeah, right.
This is recorded now. It's on record.
It is. It's out there. So man, like, yeah, the guy, just, Brandon's amazing. Like, he works his ass off. Like, he's a really, really, really hardworking guy. So, but anyway, having said that, we have more people joining us. I'm going to admit them. But now both of you are here primarily because I want you guys to kind of talk about your work that you do for yourself, or for, I mean, we always talk about, we'll get into more about, like, the stuff that you guys have done in TV and everything, but your passion, your projects, I think a lot of people kind of talk themselves out of doing their own personal work. And you guys have both, for various reasons, and you guys, have made a secondary, in your case, Judd, I would assume Hilo is actually more of a career going. It is your main career now as an author and writer. And Mike, Herobear, like, to be able, I always marvel at the fact that you guys can find the time in doing a TV, working on a real work schedule, and still be able to raise a family, and still be able to do something for yourself and make things for yourself. And Mike, like, it's a testament to you that you have always marveled at that, because I mean, you've been doing Herobear as long as your kids are older than 20, right? You've been doing them.
Yeah.
So you had little ones when you first started the book.
Yeah, and it's just finding the time. I always try and encourage everybody that whenever we're working on our own stuff, and I used to fall prey to this too, you always wanted that big chunk of time that you go, when I get that weekend, I'll get so much done on this weekend, or if I could just take a week off, I could just do that. And in the end, we never get that time. Life takes over. There's so much going on. I'm a big believer in, I call it incremental momentum. And so if you do a little bit each day on something that you're working on, eventually you will get that project done. And if it is something you're doing on the side, then you know that you just keep momentum at it. You will eventually get that done, but do it consistently. Do it on a consistent schedule like that.
That's always Stephen King's advice. He wrote a terrific book on writing.
It's a great book. It's a great book. Yeah,
I have listened to that, and I kid you not. I listen to books on tape on.
Is it on audio? I didn't know
it is on audio.
He reads it.
Oh, I gotta get that.
It at least, and it'll sound so grandiose, 40 times. I have listened to that driving in places, and I'll whenever I start a new job or whatever, or if I'm going, I will listen all the way through, and he tells the greatest. I love that book. From him. But
the audio book. I'm right there with Mike. I'm not up to 20, but at least 4 times.
I've read the book about 4 times.
It's so inspiring, and you're right, Judd. He has a great way of how he puts about how he writes. I love the door closed and the door open theory and all that.
Yeah.
And it's just as you said. He I forget, he calls out a couple of times that basically that writing isn't for sissies. Like, if you want to do this, you have to go do this. And if you're waiting for that time to happen, it's not going to happen. You have to carve out, find that hour a day at least, and go write, even if it's bad, and you're going to write badly. It's like everybody writes badly. It's about when you get through all that and you get past it and you'll start making it good. And, you know, you don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't try to find the perfect spot in your house. Don't build an office. Just, you know, he said, you know, a TV tray and a laptop that's facing a door can be where your novel happens. And I agree with that. It's like you can't wait for the muse to hit, or for the time to present itself, or for the $1 million idea. You just need to, you know, if you want to do it, you have to just get started.
Just do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's a great push to do that and to force you to do it. And he has one key thing that I think is great for us, especially in this day and age of everybody wanting to share stuff, is he goes, don't write like, or do 10 pages, but you're not done, but go share it with somebody. Go, hey, I did this. And he goes, you're not done yet. So don't get that, because you'll slow down. You go, because you'll get that little moment of satisfaction that someone likes it, and you're like, you're not done yet. Finish it all.
Finish it.
Finish.
Yeah.
There's do you guys know Jake Parker?
Yeah.
Jake's awesome, and he put out
he's the inventor of Inktober. Does everyone know Inktober?
Yep. Yeah.
You know that Jake created that.
Right.
That's Jake Parker. Go on, Mike. I'm sorry.
No. That's he's the nicest guy in the world, and has a great. He put out something that really defined a lot of what we talk about, which it was like a year or so ago, and it's called "Finish Not Perfect," and it was this whole just little speech about just finish it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I talked to a lot of people about this, that there's a 2.0 of everything. You know, your rough draft, and there's so many quotes on this, is just that. It just has to exist. The only thing a rough draft has to be is exist. After that, then you're already on to refining it, and it's so much easier to start to build. But whatever you're drawing or writing or creating, just finish it. Just get a version of it.
Well,
it's usually the advice I give in storytelling in general when people want to like write a thing.
Yeah.
It's like you have that big idea that gets you excited. That's the one that gets you to it, that gets you up to do it. Like, now think of an ending.
Yeah.
Just so you know where you're going.
Absolutely.
Just so you're not like walking out the door for a walk and you have no idea where you're going. If you know where you land, you know, the middle can suck, you know, and you can fix that later. But if you know where it ends, you can even like ham fist your way to the ending, and oh my God, then you have your first draft done. And congratulations, you finished your first draft. Now you get to go fix it.
Yeah.
You know, there's all these various people might talk about how much they love writing. You know, they love the written word and looking at the blank page. Like, I think they're lying. I don't think they like writing. I think they like editing their stuff. I think you love when you're, you know, that for me, that's the best part. Like I'm on the bottom third of my next book. And so I am miserable. You know, it is the worst, even though it's going really well. I just, you know,
it's just push to the end.
It's like, oh God, please let this like finish and just finish. Let me just nail the landing a little bit, and then I'll go and make it better. But oh God, just
you know it. Well, that kind of leads. Like we were just talking about this. One of the guys I work with asked me. He said we were all talking, and he asked. This is a general question. He said, "Do you guys love to draw for fun when you're done with work?" And I'm like, God, no. Like I just don't. Like
I bet Mike does. Mike, I bet you do. Conk?
I do.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
See, it's, well, you know, and it's funny how that is. I just knew this was going to be the answer with Kunkel because Mike is such a visual thinker.
Yeah.
He's such a visualist, and I could not imagine that there's work and there's play. And I think, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm talking for you. Your head and hands got to go play, even if you've just finished the work. I can totally see that.
I doodle a lot. I scribble a lot. I think with pictures much better that way. I think out my stories as pictures. It's just how I write stories. But I like doodling little things and just exploring like that. It makes my brain work better. I'd like to do it more, you know, for myself, for my own stuff, but it's how I'll start a storyboard. It's always thumbnailing and scribbling and thinking it out, you know, little like that, and thinking it, you know, we talked about that, Dave, but but even just on my own, if I take it all away, if I can just scribble and explore, it's fun.
Yeah, I need to find, like, I've lost like I told you, for me, it's like it's something that I used to love to do. And I think because it became the career and it's just so arduous doing storyboards, especially if you're doing action storyboards.
Yeah.
That it's just mentally, I give it everything I have, and I don't know if I have anything left in the tank. And I honestly think sometimes I feel like I don't want to shortchange my own work, and I probably should, take Jake's advice, finish not perfect, with it, because I envy guys like you. Like, you sit down and, I mean, I used to do tons of stuff. I used to write tons of stuff. I used to, had my own book through Image and had, but it just got to a point where it was just like, this is, I just want to have some time to not draw.
I think that's, and we're all kind of circling around it, that finished not perfect. The theory behind it is that you don't let it get so precious right in the beginning. You just, there's that, I have such a soft spot. There's a movie called Finding Forrester with Sean Connery.
I
love the movie so much. And there's this great little moment where he sits down, they both sit down to write. And the kid just sits there and stares, and he's like overthinking, like, what should I write? What should I write? And Sean Connery's all, just start writing. And his whole thing is, we write with this first. Just your heart. Just write what comes to your mind. Mm-hmm. Your second draft, you write with your head. That's where you, like you're saying, Judd, that's where you get the chance to go, okay, what's there? How does it work? This and that.
Right.
My Alec, my son, he went to New York Film Academy and went there for screenwriting. And
wow.
He studied that, and now he's done a little bit of freelance. He's finding his place. He's maybe thinking about marrying next year, whatever. Life is where it is right now.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But he had this great teacher, awesome teacher, and they were working on, he wrote a number of features scripts while he was there. But a couple times he would come in and the teacher would go, okay, where are you guys all at? He goes, today I want you to just write a scene. Just write a scene that you have not already figured out in your, and they were like, oh, okay. And he went off and wrote like a 3-page scene. And he goes, Pop, it was so great. He goes, suddenly now I have this other angle because I knew the characters, I could put them in. I go, but because you didn't overthink it. You just did it. You just dove in and do it. And I think that's a lot of what we should do, and not overthink that first. Just dive in and see what we create. Because you can always shape it. You can always shape it into something.
Well, it's never finished. Yeah. I mean, if you're, that's the beauty of owning your own thing. You can actually sit down. It's yours. So you can go in until the day you die and keep editing.
Well, we used to call it, we call it fame or blame. It's up to you. It's you can decide what you want to be, but it's fame or blame. It's all on you.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys. So I want you the origins of your books. Judd, you kind of talked a little bit about that, but I'm going to start with you first, Mike. So it's 20 years ago or more. Give me the origin of Herobear. What did you do? How'd you come up with it?
Herobear goes back much farther than that. It was in school, and it was a lot of
grade school, high school.
Yeah, elementary
middle school.
Yeah, and kind of came a little bit more into fruition in high school. And Judd and we've talked about, I wanted to be a comic strip artist. I wanted to do comic strips, and that was, you in the paper and everything. And I, the trinity of, actually I have a picture of, it's so funny, I have it right here. These were the trinity guys. These are the guys.
Bill Watterson.
Can you name them all?
Yeah. Well, I can't almost.
Gary Larson.
That's 2. I didn't get a chance to see the third one because of the glare.
Okay,
Mike, say something so I go back to your screen. Hang on.
How's that?
Hang on. I got to scroll over. And Burke Breathitt. Yeah.
So they were. I mean, and it doesn't mean that I don't. I mean, I've got, Jim Davis was up there, and I have Bill. I have Chuck, Charles Schultz, Walt Kelly, Jim Davis, Don Martin. Don Martin was a huge influence on me.
Yeah, me too. Mad Magazine in general.
And Don was what got me into wanting to be a cartoonist. I found this big, thick collection of his that's 7-Eleven, and that's what I wanted to draw. And so all that led to doing my own characters for like the school newspaper for comic strips, and I had a little character that was an early version of Herobear called Hero Man, and he had a little stuffed bear that was his sidekick and a little robot. And it was very influenced by Jim Davis. I had another strip that was called Pipsqueak that was a mouse instead of a cat. So it was all my worlds that I was playing with. And as I got older, I got out into college. I started, exploring more narrative and stuff, and it led to creating Herobear and kind of building that mythology. And a lot of what was founded at that time came from not wanting to pitch it as a movie and an animated project, because I was in animation at the time, and I saw a couple friends that were doing their own comics, and going, if I do that, I can visualize the entire way I want to see it as best as I can, and be able to present it, at least have it in a shareable form. And that always then sort of led me to, I just want to do it in this form. Let me write and draw all of it. Let me be able to present it how I see it in the best way, and then we can talk about it in other forms and other ways, but at least I get a chance to present it the way I see it. And that was the beginning of it. So the first book came out in '99, and that was up at I had a few copies up at WonderCon up in San Francisco. Oakland.
Mike, what ultimately got you going to do a book? Like what, you sat with it for a long time. So what?
Scott Morse. Scott Morse did Little Gray Man and Soulwind, and he was doing those. Scott Morse is a story artist at Pixar and has been in the industry for a number of years. Hugely talented. Yeah. And worked with him at Turner when we were on Catstone Dance and Pagemaster and stuff like that. And saw what he had done, and he was like, "You draw your book, you put together, you send it off to Canada. Elves make it. They send it back to you. There's a box of your book. There it exists. It smells like Christmas. You should do this." And we were like,
sorry,
okay.
It sounds like Scott. That's really funny.
We're like, okay, I want to do this. And even at that time, though, we used a printer that was down in Hollywood. So I was making runs during the day down to Hollywood to see it. I didn't understand Photoshop at all. A friend that knew Photoshop better, when he told me about the button multiply, that you could change a layer to be multiply and you could suddenly paint like a cell. You could paint color. I was like, that was the most magical thing I'd ever learned, because I was scanning in pencil drawings and trying to color red up to the line. And he's all, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?" And
stop that. Put that down. Stop that.
The first book, actually, all the originals, there's 3 pages that have the red cape. I colored them in on the originals. I didn't separate it off. So I just turned that into the printer. And I go, "I just want this to be one color." And he's all, "We can't do that. You didn't separate it." So I had to figure out how to do all that and got it all fixed. But it led from that. And over the years, I just continued to work on it to where it has come to this.
Oh, there it is. I got to get one
Big book
of
of
those.
Herobear.
Oh, that's awesome.
600 pages.
Wow,
And
Mike.
It's packed with stuff and whatever, but it has a brand new 250-page book or story in it that hasn't been released yet.
Wow, Mike. And it's out, right? Is it out?
It's officially out. We're shipping it out to people that pre-ordered it, and we'll have we have it on our website and stuff. But it's all come together, which is
all right. So you got to tell everybody what you're at. We'll repeat it again. But what's the website?
theastonishfactory.com. I'll put it in the chat.
There you go. So, and we'll come back to that in a minute.
Yeah. So that's my little journey.
So while Mike's doing that, Judd, all right. So, yeah. So, you, my friend, were super busy with comic book work and writing tons of stuff for DC. You had come off at Juniper. So what's the origin of Hilo? When did you start working on the book?
To tell it as briefly as possible, about, I guess, 8 years ago at this point, when my son was about 7. So at the time, I was still writing for DC Comics, and I was also pitching a lot of live action television that never got made. And I was a little bit unhappy. I should mention that. I was a little bit unhappy with stuff. I was, I had a longing I couldn't quite put my finger on. And my son came to me because he was 7 and kind of getting a hankering and he knew I wrote superhero comics, and he wanted to read some of them. In particular, he wanted to read some of my Batman comics. And I had to tell him, oh, no, you may not read my Batman comics because those are for teenagers and grown-ups. And there's, they're pretty violent. There's some decapitation. There's dead parents. There's things. So no. So I gave him. I hunted around for like some all ages books, and the handful I gave him Bone. I gave him Herobear. I gave him Herobear and the Kid. And I found a bunch of I had them. Superman animated series collections they did. They did a bunch of comics based on that and some of the Batman stuff. And he just loved all of it so much. And part of it actually came out that I tried to get a whole bunch of merch, Bone merch. So I went to the website, ordered a whole bunch of it because I was just going to surprise him. And Jeff Smith, who I know, saw like, what is this crap? You're ordering like $300 of merch. What are you doing? And I said, man, just like, nah, your money's no good here. And so I'm like, my son flipped for Bone. And then he sent us this gigantic box of Bone crap. Just calendars, action figures, hats, T-shirts. And my son did this ridiculous deep dive with Bone where he'd wear the T-shirts every day and he had a little hat on. He was playing with the Bone action figures. And I kind of got jealous. I really got to me. He's like, yeah, he's really digging on Bone hard. And it's when it really sort of hit me like, you know what? I should do something that he loves as much as this. I really should give it a try. And the story I usually tell from this one is like, and then I started Hilo, which is a lie. When I give talks at schools, I lie and I skip this middle part. Which is, I went and I had an idea for a book, which is about aliens and they find the spacecraft and this whole thing. And I had this idea, and I didn't do a book. I did like a presentation. I did like 20 pages and then a synopsis, and I didn't even have a literary agent. I just sent it out to editors that I knew, who all came back with this feeling of like, yeah, it's okay, it's nice. I would love to see it finished. And also, I was having a hard time getting it back to me because I didn't have an agent. And it was kind of a wake-up call, like, what am I doing wrong here? It's like, you know what? I'm not putting the work in. I tried to do it half-assed. I didn't actually do a book. And then I sat down on spec. I spent a year and a half, and I just did the book. And I realized also the story that I was doing, I was doing a story that I thought would sell. And I realized, like, you know what? What do I want to do? What's the story I really, really want to do? And it's like, well, I kind of want to do a kid's superhero story. And I want to do something that's like, I don't know, kind of Iron Giant, kind of E.T., kind of Doctor Who, like a lot of Doctor Who. What do I love about those stories? And I took the time to figure out, like, okay, this is what's going to be. And then I spent a year and a half having no idea if it's ever going to get published, if anything's ever going to happen with it. But I knew I had to do it. And in doing it, I realized, like, oh, I'm a cartoonist. Yeah. And I mean that as Pollyanna as it sounds. All the years of writing superhero comics and the years of even working in animation and trying to do live action, I'm happiest when I'm writing and drawing my own stories. So luckily, this small publisher, Random House, took an interest in the book. Yeah.
Small publisher, yeah.
Yeah, no, they're
good to see them making it, see them surviving.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll be okay. So
they're a comer. They're hard workers.
Yeah.
Good.
So I got really, really lucky that timing wise, Random House was actually looking for something just like this. Timing wise, it was actually just before a lot of all ages graphic novels started like exploding. It was like I got in for the first time in my career. I got in there early, but more important than any of that crap, I was lucky because this is a story that I loved doing. I was excited doing, and on the flip side, Dave, I too do not draw outside of when I'm doing my work.
Yeah.
But it's probably because I'm drawing my own stuff.
Well, you're doing your own work.
Well, yeah, you are drawing outside.
You are doing your own thing. Like
yeah, I don't feel like I need to go draw to unwind. Like, no, I just I spent the whole day doing drawing these big furry monsters and this robot and this kid flying around shooting lasers out of his hands. I'm good. I don't need to sit down and let me noodle away on this this cat idea I have. I don't have to do that.
Well, I mean, I think that Judd, what that comes down to, it's you and Mike both are in the same boat with this. You work hard, and like you said, you're lucky, but truthfully, like you put yourself in a position where you actually had good product and a finished product, that when the time came, maybe it was the right time in the new universe, all the stars aligned. But, I really do think that if something is good, it finds an audience at some point. I think people, whether it finds it immediately or it finds it 15 years later, or it finds it whenever you know what I mean? It's like, how many things do you see where movies get rediscovered over the years? They were flops when they came out or whatever. And I think that you guys, both kind of have that thing about yourselves where you're able to do the work, kind of get it and kind of get yourself, get it out there, and where everybody sees it and they're like, wow, this is really good stuff, like this is really cool stuff. So I think about like Stan Lee with the Fantastic Four. When he first did that book, he had been writing for how many decades and doing probably what he hated, stuff that he didn't, he was shortchanging himself. And like kind of just as a last ditch thing, it was like, yeah, I'll write the Fantastic Four, and look what happened. And I think it's the same, like that same story that you just told is really, to me, I go running at night and I'm listening to this books on tape, and I was listening to the Slugfest. It's the DC Marvel thing. And they were talking about Stan and how he kind of came to that epiphany when he was doing stuff. And I do think that that's where you find the best work, when you're not writing it for somebody, you're writing it for yourself. Right? Mike, you would agree with that too, I assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in that, because if you don't love what you're writing, and if you are writing it for somebody, if you're trying to write it for somebody else, it's not what you're passionate about, and they don't like it, and it's obviously wasn't what you were passionate about, then nobody likes it. So at least if you're going to go after it and you believe in it, even if they don't like it, at least you believed in it. There's a great quote, Ed Emberley, who's a longtime children's book illustrator. I know you've seen his stuff. He's super interesting style from like the 60s and 70s. And he gave this great quote of all the books he did were for the other Ed Emberleys in the world. And so, Judd, that's what you're doing. You're doing, your books for the other Judds in the world, and that's the best way you could look at it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, Judd, you're muted. Did I mute you? Did I mute you accidentally? Let's see here. Can you unmute yourself?
There.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Okay.
I'm back.
All right.
Yes, I mean, I'm a big believer in the old adage that success comes when, when preparation and an opportunity meet. Which is always a good one, but there's also a lot of times you gotta make your own opportunity. And it is about, Alec Baldwin always tells this really funny story that when he was a kid, well, not a kid, like a young actor, he thought success would find him, and he quickly got over that. And he finds with like a lot of young actors, they assume that someone's going to show up from the Hollywood company, the company that is Hollywood. Oh, hello, we heard you're interested in acting. We heard you have a great interest in acting, and we'd like you to come in and be things. Like, well, I think I can find the time. Thank you. All of us here at Hollywood Company, Hollywood Incorporated, really appreciate that you're going to come out and do that. Like that doesn't happen. No one's coming shopping for you. When people eventually come looking for you, you don't care anymore, so to speak.
Yeah. You've when they come looking for you, you've broken the door down. I mean, it's always when you're successful that they're not going to come to you when you're struggling. It doesn't work that way.
No. It's you know, it's a rare event when you do something small and somebody finds it. You gotta go make your thing. I mean, that's the whole thing. This is the plight of artists. You know, storytellers, screenwriters, you know, artists. You if you want to succeed, you have to go make your thing. You know, how do I break into comics? Well, you gotta go make a comic. Well, they're not going to let me make a Batman comic. Like, right, you got to go make your own comic. I don't draw. Like, go find a best friend who draws. You got to, it's like a lot. That is the one that always breaks my heart a lot, is like people who want to write comics and don't draw. It's like, I can't help you. I don't know what you, I don't know what to tell you. It's like, I got into this by writing and drawing my own stuff. Like, well, it's like, no, I don't know any artists to turn you on to, man. Go find your own friends.
Find your path. Find your path.
Yeah, you got to go find your people. Trust me, I'm sure if you look hard enough, there are women and men out there who want to draw a story, who can't write worth a and don't know where to go or what to do, and they'll draw your book.
Yeah.
You just have to go find yourself a best friend.
Yep.
But it is about finding that inspiration. It's about finding a story you love, and then just trying to work it into the ground. Just work on it really, really hard. And then you have it. It's something you can hand to people. Like, I did this. This is what I do. This is what I can do.
No, that's exactly it. I think that's some of the best advice to give people when they are working is find a way to make what you're doing shareable. Make yourself shareable in whatever form that is. Is it a tangible 8-page book that you staple together at, you know, some copy place or something you put online? Whatever you do, find a way to make it shareable, because we've all lived with that idea that we don't quite have in any sort of physical, tangible form to give, and it serves no purpose, and it doesn't help in any way. So do whatever you can to make that idea tangible in whatever way, you know.
Gotta knock your head around as hard as you can to make it great.
Yeah.
But also still have the sand to not get overly precious and be frightened to show people. Yeah. I mean, there's art. That crowd of folk break my heart and drive me insane, who want to do the work or have done the work, but then they're just nervous about what people are going to say. It's like, you know, people are going to hate it. Of course they are. Lots of people are going to hate it. Yeah. But, you know,
but do you like it? Do you like it? If you like it, then that's all that matters.
That all matters. Other people will like it for sure. Someone will.
Well, you know, as you guys know, I'm a big Kiss fan, and a credo that I've always lived with. They said this. You know, it's like either love us or hate us, but don't be in the middle. Like, we don't want that. We you know, and I always thought that was wonderful advice, and I always tried to have that mentality in my career with things, doing stuff. It's hard, especially when you're working on a show where you have to somebody has to like your work or they're going to fire you, you know? So there's those moments of that, but it really is the beauty of doing it for yourself. When you're doing it for yourself, as long as you're your audience, you're pleasing yourself, the rest kind of doesn't matter at that point. Like, you know, and I think that's probably, even when you're doing the work, when I'm doing the work for Marvel or for whoever, I do try to please myself first. Like, it's like, if I think it's fun, then I'm like, okay, at least I know somebody likes it, whether it's, you know, there's one person that likes it. So it's to me, that's always what I think is the beauty of doing your own work, is that you are first and foremost pleasing yourself as the audience. And then if you're doing it for yourself and it's coming from the heart and it's genuine, I think people gravitate to it. And people are, it's not going to resonate with some people, whether they don't like your style of art, whether they don't like the style of story, but maybe 5 years later, they'll love it and think it's the best thing they've ever seen, you know? Alex Toth was that way for me as a kid. I hated his stuff. And when I was, you know, when I finally came of age, he's one of my favorite artists of all time now. I love his stuff. Right. You know, because it's the nuance as a kid that I was more Neil Adams and, you know, guys in your face and Toth seemed very quiet to me and very boring. And then when I really studied, I was like, oh my God, the guy's amazing. He's absolutely incredible. You know, and that's just an artist. I mean, but you know, then you start to discover creator-owned works, and they're always better. There's always a vibrancy and an authenticity to the work that isn't there when you're writing for a corporation. It's just because you have other concessions you have to make. And it's not always you. It's like you may have written something that the editor takes out, right, Judd? I'm sure there were plenty of ideas that you had, and it's like, man, that sounds great, but we can't do that because, Batman in the movie, is another movie coming out. We can't do that. Like, that'll hurt.
I've had whole storylines that I was well into, meaning published comics are out, and this is where I'm landing the plane, and someone says, yeah, we're not going to do that. We can't. That makes Batman look like a chump. It's like, that's the end of the story. I mean, that's where we're going with this. Like, nah, I don't really like that. Like, okay. I mean, it becomes a thing where, I mean, it's a sidebar that you have to develop the skill where plot. I mean, Stephen King talks about this, like plot is for suckers.
Yeah.
Who cares about plot? Character. It's all about character.
Yeah.
So you learn that in doing superhero comics, but it is of course, much easier, much more fulfilling that I'm not going to get a note from someone who says, no, you can't use Nightwing in this book because he broke his leg in his own title. So he's going to have a broken leg for 3 months. And then you have to go, all right, setting aside the superhero's got a broken leg. We'll put that aside. Can we just screw with time a little bit and say this happened before or after? No, he's got a broken leg for 3 months. How about Martian Manhunter? I don't want to use Martian Manhunter. I want to use Nightwing. He's Batman. Why are we talking about Martian Manhunter? Literally, actual conversation. Whereas, with Hilo, plus minus, you have the freedom to do whatever you want. It also means you have the freedom to do whatever you want,
yeah.
which is it's the sky's the limit. And sometimes there's a lot of sky.
Yeah.
When you can take your story anywhere, it's that's pretty good. Can I make that better? Sometimes when you only have a small piece of real estate to work within, that's where the magic has to happen.
Limitations, I think, craft a lot. When you're working with limitations, it's always a better way, I think, of kind of, because once you have some limitations, now you don't have that big wide vista that you can do everything. Now you're kind of limited with what you have to do. But you're right, Judd. When you have your own creation, you can do whatever you want. You have to impose your own limitations.
But limitations are important. Literally today. So my book, the one I'm working on now, because we're gonna have some back matter and some stuff. It's got to land on 190 pages. Now my books have to pretty much, one was the first couple were 195. Then I was able to stretch out to 200. And this is all boring shit. All you need to know is that the book I'm working on today had to be 190 pages. So I've got about 70 pages left in the book. And I wrote out the whole story, scripted it, and then I was laying out the pages. I spent the last 3 days laying out the pages. And I realized I kind of picked my head up. It's I blew through half the remainder of the book. I blew through 36 of my last 70 pages, and I'm not anywhere near done. I've got 10 more scenes to go.
Uh-oh.
And it was these feelings what the hell did I just do? And it's okay. Let me go back. And it's I got to reassess, cut. And even now, I still think I'm coming out long.
Yeah.
But now I just gotta watch it so I can stick the landing. So, but I know the book will probably be better for it. It was probably getting fat. It was probably going on a little bit long here. The action scene that I wrote the last 2 days, I drew the last 2 days. I probably didn't need all that action.
Yeah.
What do I need for the plot? I need this 1 page, not the 5 I drew. Okay. I need even that, maybe 3/4 of this page. And then okay, it's all gotta go.
I got to tell you, Joe, from working, a lifetime in animation, that was the best lesson that I ever learned was editing. The first show I ever directed was 400 feet over. I think. Okay. It was 5 minutes or 3 minutes long. And the producer told me I had to cut. And I'm cut? What? But it's perfect. What do you mean?
It's
I can't cut any of it.
But it works. Yeah. But it's great.
He told me, and this is a lesson I'll never forget. God bless you, Scott Gerald. He said to me, Dave, once you start cutting, you won't know when to stop. And by God, was he right? Like,
Yeah.
because I went to my own stuff first. I said, I'm going to cut my own stuff because if I'm going to cut somebody else's stuff, I'm going to cut my own stuff. And I went to something that I thought was precious, and I'm like, but it's not necessary. And I'm like, you're gone. And as soon as I did that, it was like the floodgates opened. I was like, once I realized that, I was like, it makes the stuff better. This is tighter. It works better by doing that. And I started going in there. I started editing stuff out, and he was right. I actually cut too much. So it was actually short. I had to put some stuff back in when we cut it down. But you realize with editing, it's like you're trimming the fat. Like you're getting, it's carving sculpture. It's like there's rock, and you're chiseling it away, and you're making it into, something that's leaner and tighter and better as a story. So that's tough. I would imagine as your own person, I mean, where you have somewhat of a mandate, but at the same time, you're cutting your own work. You're not cutting anybody else's stuff. It's your own thing that you're looking at. And that's got to be difficult to do it sometimes if you just don't approach it clinically and go in there, because it's all precious to you, right? You're all like, this is great. Like, I don't want to cut this.
I cut a beautiful scene today. I'm mourning it still. It's, that's why they call it killing your babies. There was this scene where I got two characters that go into a library, and there's this funny bit with the two librarians. There's back and forth, and it's really funny stuff. It was really great. And then I realized when I had to cut all this crap out, it's like, this is the scene that's going to go, because all I really needed was a book from the library. So instead of like a whole scene, like this kid's going to take the book out of his backpack and we're done. That's all we need. It's like, that's all we needed to move the plot forward. It's like all this funny crap's going to go in favor of like, for length. You got to do it that way.
Yeah.
I think that's funny when you hear that on shows and movies, when they had to make a decision because of budget or because of time. And you learn later that was never part of what it was supposed to be, but you're like, but I could never see the movie any other way. Right. And like Star Trek, the original Star Trek, there was, and I think they have it in the first one, the transporter used to be a physical like ship or thing that actually flew down to the planet, let them out, and flew back up. And so when they went to go do it, they were like, we don't have the budget for this. Why don't we just make them like zap out, and then we just put them on the planet and they're there. And they're like, okay, that works good. Let's just do that.
You can imagine like the conversation like, well, that's fine. It sounds stupid. We'll do it this time.
It'll
Maybe
never
we'll do it again.
No one will ever buy it. And yet that becomes so part of it. And it's so funny because you hear things like that and scenes that were left out.
I'm waiting for them to invent that. I mean, almost everything else in Star Trek has been done. So I'm waiting for the teleporter I'm hoping that'll happen soon.
Everybody's going to get splinched. Everybody's going to get
just be a blob.
All of us nerds will say, I'm not getting in that. Like,
no, I know. No. Well, yeah, I know. Everybody I wouldn't want to go first.
It's exactly. Someone just said, "Have you seen The Fly?" It's exactly
right.
That. Yeah. Good call, Ashley. Yeah.
Well, but
well, I think exactly what you're saying of why we then choose something that we're passionate about. Judd, you have the perfect example. The first time you dove into your own thing, you went into it with the mindset of what does someone else want? How can I prepare it for that? And the danger of that, it doesn't mean you can't create something that can be for an audience. You do that as a regular job. You can do that. But when it's your own thing, when push comes to shove and you have to put in the extra hours and you have to do it and you have to defend it, you can't defend it when it isn't what you were passionate about, what you were doing just from your heart. You were doing it for another reason. And so I think you landing on where you did land is a lot more personal and a lot more passionate. And that means then you'll put in the extra time. That means you'll defend it more. That means you'll make those decisions to cut that scene, but solve it better and do that because you believe in it more. You're not doing it for someone else for that other reason. Yeah.
It's the fuel, it's really, you got to love it. You really do,
you guys, I mean, there's there's love pouring all over the place from your work. Like that's the beauty of it. Like that's the inspiring thing when you when you look at your work, both of you, like it's your own stuff, and it just pours, the love of it pours through. It's not, it never feels like it's been compromised in any way, shape, or form, that this is purely something that you wanted to make, and you made it with your vision intact, and there weren't concessions that were made to some editorial. It was the book you wanted to put out, and there's a lot to be applauded for that. Like that's a brave, tough thing to do, I think, for a lot of people to sit down and do that work that way.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's the truth. I mean, so, I think, like, I want to ask process with this. If you guys got a little bit more time, like, I don't know what your time is and with this, but if you can, we can talk a little bit, whenever you're ready to go, let me know. But, when Mike, when you're approaching your stories, Judd talked a little bit about his process. Do you have an ending in mind when you start your stories? Do you know, like, you have an idea, and you're like, okay, here's the beginning, middle, and end, and you kind of work that way? Or do you kind of let the story come to you when you're working?
I usually know where I want to land. I know the feeling I want to get across. I know maybe that I'm a big believer in endings of movies and stories and things. So exactly what Judd's saying, I fully agree with, because I think that's, when you go see a movie, when you watch something, that's what you're left with. So come up with a really good ending, land that really well, because that's what you're going to walk out of the theater. And people will forgive, give them a good beginning to pull them in. They'll forgive that middle area where you're like, I don't know what happened there, but it ended really good, and I feel good, and it's like, okay, good, then give them that. And I am a big believer in that. I learned a long time ago that and that's why maybe, Judd, you see me more visually, that I figured out my process of doing books accidentally is that I'm not good at writing a script first and just going, let me just write it out real quick. And I have to draw it out. And I realized that was how Stan and Jack worked, was that Stan had an idea for the story. Stanley would go, I got it, here, we'll talk it out with Jack. But he then gave it to Jack Kirby and said, just draw it, or John Romita. And he would let them draw it out, basically. And then he would go back and script it and attach the dialogue to it after they'd already plotted it out. And I kind of work that way. It seems very off, I know, but I have an idea for the story I want to do. I then will actually visually go through and draw it out, and I'll have lines of dialogue and things, but I'll get a sense for it visually. And then I actually go back in and I dialogue it and I script it, and I play with it a little bit more like that. So if I think about, like, animation, I rough it out first and then I clean it up, and it's always process. I'm always building on everything up on top of it like that, and seeing where it takes me. It's how I always animated. I would usually thumbnail and do key poses, but then I would also do a little bit of straight ahead animation to that pose. And if it changed, then I would push that pose and make it stronger. Yeah. But I had anchor points. So for me, that's that. And I'm always looking for the emotion, for the feeling. My stuff is so driven by nostalgia and Stand By Me and Wonder Years and things like that really influence those types of films and stories. Comic strips on Sundays. I have a new book coming out that'll be out soon that's so driven by the love of comic strips and things like that I try and tap into that. So I'll use even music and things I'll listen to or watch things while I'm writing and creating that help me write it in a certain way. So for me, it is definitely all about the emotion of it.
Well, I think that-that's what it's always about, right? First and foremost, I think the way I teach my class, I don't know how when you work with your students, Mike, but I always make my class about emotion. I think that as a storyboard artist, if you can't convey emotion and convey it well, I think that, your career is going to be fairly short-lived. And I think that if you want to thrive in the industry, the more that you're able to hit those emotional beats, the better. And, I think that's why I loved working on a show like Juniper. There's such few shows that have a voice to them and a resonance to them that Juniper had a voice, and it was, you know, you had a clear vision for that character, and it was yours. It was personal. It was a personal thing that was there, and it resonated when you read the scripts, especially the ones that you wrote. The ones, and so when you got them as a storyboard artist, for me, when I'm tackling something, if I don't know the characters, it's always a much more difficult, because it's almost like grasping at air in some ways, like it's smoke. You know, if it's intangible, like you can't, if you can't grab those characters and get a real firm grip on what they're about, they're very difficult to board. And Juniper was one of the easiest shows for me. Like, for whatever reason, those characters resonated with me very quickly. And I liked all of them. And I saw a clear, you know, it was the designs, it was the writing, everything just clicked. And for me, it was very easy to board. Like, Ray was, you know, he was my favorite. I loved him. And he was, you know, It was like, he was just a lot of fun to work with. But all the monsters were fun. They were fun characters. They all had voices. Each one of them had a personality. Like, they actually had a life. Like, you felt like they actually had a life. And a lot of times in animated shows, characters feel like props. You know, they show up, they say their line, and then they go off. And it's like, okay, you know, I've seen this guy a million times. Like, he's literally an automaton, you know. There's nothing about them it's like a trash can talking to you. It doesn't have a personality or a life. Juniper had a life to it. You know, and I think that to me, and I know, Mike, you feel the same way, because we had these conversations, you know. It was, I mean, Judd, you know, we came to you a few times like, hey, we have some ideas for stories, you know, and because the characters just had a life of their own, you know, they had a life that you felt like you knew those characters really well. And I actually think, Judd, like, that came across even with the Batman, because Jason Todd was done, you did him in a way that was so it was a painful beauty to him, is the best way I can describe it. He was such a tragic character in the sense of the way you wrote him, but he had a life. Like, you didn't have to see that whole life on camera to know that, like, that after the Joker killed him and he was, you know, there was a whole, he had a whole life after that. And before he shows up as the Red Hood. And that to me was the beauty of that. And it doesn't surprise me that I really loved that movie, and because you know, the writing, I knew you from Juniper, and it's just you put so much of yourself into the work, and you know, even if it is a corporate owned thing, it still came across as personal. There was still elements of, like, these characters had a life to them. I don't know where I'm really going with this, other than just.
Oh, I can listen to you talk about how awesome I am all day, man. That's great.
I could too.
So, but you know,
no,
yeah, you are. Like,
no. But thank you. I mean, I think, what I try to, I don't even know if it's not something I do necessarily by choice, but it's the stuff I always loved. And Mike and I would talk about this a lot. You know, we are comic strip guys. We are comic strip guys who also grew up on television. So it's always about characters.
Yeah.
You know, no one in a comic strip, you know who they are. You know, I mean, Charles Schultz's school of storytelling is that there is not a single character. Something that Linus is going to say is not something that Lucy's going to say.
Yeah.
And something Lucy's going to say is never going to come out of Charlie Brown's mouth. None of them are interchangeable. That's because you know who they are. And I think between a healthy diet of growing up on Peanuts and MASH, you know, who are, you know, honestly, it's one of these things I tell people now and again, like, yeah, go watch old sitcoms, like good ones. Go watch MASH if you want to understand character.
Watch
like,
Cheers.
What do you? Yeah, and Cheers. Oh my God, Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers is like such. I mean, God Almighty, it is so strong as far as character. Like Cliff
So
Clavin is such a fully formed character. Norm, Woody, you know, Sam. They are cartoonish in the way they are done because not because they're broad, which in some cases they kind of are, but because they're so fully formed and they have a point of view.
Yeah,
they're
And-
relatable. They're relatable.
And if you go back and just watch even how that show's presented with those characters, that it really is like a stage, like a play. That you have characters come in. There are other characters in the shot that are just waiting for their mark, for the camera to just pan over for them, for Cliff and Norm to say something. Meanwhile, Diane is still doing her thing over. It's so well designed, and because they know their personalities, they're alive in that world, in that place, and it's such a perfectly designed show with such limitations. Sorry,
It's funny that we're
sidetracked, but
well, it's funny that we're talking about this because today, I'm over at Titmouse, and they actually had a presentation about. I'm actually going to pitch a show over there, and I was talking to, the people over there, the development people, and we were talking about. I brought up Cheers because they were talking about tone. They were talking, and I actually brought up Mary Tyler Moore, the Mary Tyler Moore show. And it was funny because at first you could see they were kind of like the wheels were spinning, and it's like, I get it. Like, yeah, you're right. Like, that's what, that's what it is. It's now I get it. Now I understand what you mean by that, and because at first you could kind of see like, well, I don't know if it's a show about, you're not really about, I get it. And, you because those characters were so well defined in that show, so well defined in MASH. You guys are right. Like, it's all about character. I always talk about Walter Murch, the editor, in my class, and he has his 12 rules. And his 12 rules are, it's in ascending order. So, at number 1 is emotion. Everything else, he'll cross everything else off. If it crosses the 180, if it's badly lit, he'll cross all of those off. If you're hitting emotion, like, it's because that's what it's all about. If that's the best emotion that it gives you the biggest emotional impact in a scene. Even as an editor, he's like, I'm going to leave that in there, even if it breaks all of these other rules that I have for myself.
The Blink of an Eye is such a good book.
Oh, it's a great book. It's a great book. I think that's, to me, that's so, especially even now as I get older and further in my career, it used to be about doing kick-ass action stuff. It was about how well drawn you could make a board look, and how, and getting those accolades of like, oh, that's an amazing action sequence. And now I'd much rather people go, wow, that really affected me, and that was a really important and a really nice moment that you had there with this, or that really made me laugh. I'd much rather hit those beats than just all about one note of doing like cool action stuff, because maybe it's because I've done enough of that I've been there and I've done that. So it's like, I would much rather make like there's a guy, friend of mine, Tron, who is this like head of story at DreamWorks. And when I was on How to Train Your Dragon, the TV series, and they had given us one of the sequences they gave us was a storyboard sequence from the first film when Stoic thinks, Hiccup's dead. And the boards are breathtaking, but they're simple. But I mean, it actually made me tear up when I saw them. And I didn't have the same reaction when I saw the movie for some reason. But the way, and I even told Tron that, I said, you're, because I didn't realize he did them. And I said, do you know who, he's like, yeah, that was me. It's like, oh my God, like I got to bow down to you. Because even now, it's like, if I could have that moment of doing that in a board, like that's what I would, that's what I'm living for with that stuff, to do, a scene like that and put it in there. And it's just breathtaking stuff. And I think that, I think it's what both of you guys do very well. Mike, I know, you and I have worked on other stuff after Juniper, and, and we talk, we even developed our own stuff to this day, which I still think would be a great show. But anyway, I digress. It's all right. That's all we ever talked about.
Yeah. Well, it's the emotion, it's funny you say that about, you know, how you want your boards to be perceived or your story point. There's a great, Tyrus Wong was the art director of Bambi, and he has this great viewpoint of Bambi, of the backgrounds. And his whole thing is, we painted forests not to look like a forest, but to feel like a forest.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at it, there's this like wash of, you know, watercolor, and you're like, what is that? But when I look at it and you see it in the scene, you're like, it feels like I'm in it. It feels like I'm there. I feel it. And that's always what you want to land on is does it feel like what you want it to feel like? And that will always come. You can then always, you know, dress it up and make it look, but someone could do an amazing, like hyper realistic version of a forest and it would be cold. It wouldn't feel like it. But you look at those and you look at what he did and what they did with that, and you're like, I'm there and I feel emotion. It goes so much with that story.
Well, how many times people want to make look like a picture? It's like, well, go take a picture. Like, atmosphere is so much more important to me. It's all about atmosphere. It's all about how a background should make you feel something. Like you said, you know, I you know, when I was directing at Warner's, you know, I directed an episode of Static Shock, that, you know, the show that I worked on, and the character was homeless. The not the villain. But she was a character who developed powers of ice. She could make things ice, and she had a tragic. Her mother had died, and she was homeless and out on the streets. And she had her own like place that she had, and it was like out of the streets. It was, you know, and I still remember having this conversation with the background designer, because he came in and it was her room. Her character was called Permafrost, and he had done this, like, you know, there were some ice things here and something, you know, and did it work? Yeah, it was functional, but it had no emotion to it. So I sat down with him. We talked about it. I said, look, this is this girl's, like, her life is hell. This is the only thing in her life that gives her joy. Like, this is her fortress of solitude, so to speak, her refuge. This means the most to her. And she wants it to be beautiful because the rest of the world for her is ugly. So, you know, we talked. I mean, we had some inspiration. I had some inspirational things I showed him. Guy came back. It was I swear to God, like, it was the only moment I ever had where somebody was doing background work or whatever. I mean, when he showed it to me, I actually started to cry a little bit. And so did some of the other people that he showed it to, because he came in and I was sitting with a couple of other people, and he's like, hey, I have, you know, the background. You want to take a look at it? And as soon as he put it down, like, we all just kind of choked up a little bit, and everybody was like, that's beautiful. Like, it's just absolutely. And, you know, it was the very early, you know, in my career, but the thing I realized, just like the editing stuff, was, you know, background, how impactful a really well done and well designed background can be if you actually infuse it with story elements, that you put the emotion into it, because that it's a character in and of itself. And do you guys, when you guys are doing your environments in your books and stuff, do you feel like this is important because it defines who this character is, and it defines, you know, what the story is? Do you kind of feel like, you know, you kind of go, okay, I'm going to get through the background, and then it's okay, you could tell the truth. Sometimes
I'm not the best with backgrounds, but I know that I do go into it with a thought of maybe, okay, this is that character, or this is their environment. I'm trying to get better with some of it. There are certain things I do put into them that are just my little quirks and things, but I think for certain projects, I do think a lot more. I'm always character first. I always will just draw the characters, and if it's just especially in comics and graphic novels, if it's a simple scene, I just want to see that character posed and acting out, and, you know, 5 different poses for one line of dialogue. You know, I've got 1 million panels on my pages.
What about you, Judd?
Well, I think your nephew Julian was just pointing it out. He was asking about the posters on the walls of my characters' rooms, and what's funny is that they're all pretty deliberate, and they speak to the characters. Like, you know, this is character DJ, so he's a comic book kid. So what's he got on his walls? He's got superheroes, and he's got, you know, fantasy art, and, you know, and models and action figures and crap.
Yeah.
You know, for the character Gina, she's a girl who is both like science, like she's a kid who loves science and sports. So I just made a point of putting like literally there's a poster of Carl Sagan on her wall, and then like and then I put a soccer poster in there too, and it's something that I do kind of offhand in the way that, all right, I gotta do the background. I mean, Mike knows what I'm talking about. Like you got like you compose the panel, and it's really just sparse and
but deliberate. But you are deliberate about what you put into it, and I totally get that. Yes.
Yeah, it's like you know what, I gotta fill the space somehow. Otherwise, it's just gonna be a blue wall back, and even that it's gonna be jarring. I gotta put a little something back there. So if you're gonna put something back there, it should count. It shouldn't be arbitrary. It should be something that has a little bit of significance in some way.
Yeah.
You get to do it more with animation. I mean, a question that I've yet, it hasn't been answered for me, and I've never bothered to go up the food chain to ask. In Iron Giant, which is Iron Giant's one of my favorite movies, and so written and directed by Brad Bird, so the lead character, whose name I'm forgetting right now.
Hogarth.
Everybody? Hogarth. So Hogarth in his room, and he wears it at one point too. He's got a pilot's helmet.
Yeah.
And he also wears an oversized pilot's jacket.
Yeah.
So I think his father was a fighter pilot who died.
Yeah.
They don't talk. I mean, I haven't even listened to the commentary. For all I know, it's been fleshed out. But in watching it, like, oh. And when Hogarth is talking to the giant about death and having a soul, I realized he has had this conversation before with his mother.
Yeah.
He has talked about this before. And when I figured that out for me, it gave this movie, which had all this resonance for me as well, so much more. Yeah. And this was just the crap they put in his room. It was just the airplanes, this jacket, this helmet, these little details, which were left unspoken. But when like looking at it hard, like it told a whole nother layer to it. Yeah. And it's the only, you can only do it in visual storytelling. As someone just pointed out. Yeah.
Why actually there was a deleted scene that they had where Hogarth, I think they had a picture of his dad. I don't know if it was still in the room that was there, but there was a pan over to his dad in it. And I actually think that they cut it out, and I don't remember if Bert said he cut it out because he felt it was too dead on. The resonance. But yeah, Jeff, like it's exactly what I talk to about, in the class when I teach it. You talk about populating an environment. And nothing should be by accident with that. Like
we're drawing it. It's even more so than just happening to take a live action like setup, and it's that we're drawing it.
Well, last night, I one of the assignments I give my class, as a matter of fact, Sydney's in the class. She showed a clip from Iron Giant, and Sydney, I think was it your clip that you showed with the general? Was that the clip for you? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So we talked about this clip. Sydney showed, I have the students do a scene analysis and a scene breakdown. And she showed the scene where, Kent Mansley's like calling the general in a panic, like, oh, there's this monster and he's eating everything. And the general's like, yeah, Mansley, and he's, very dismissive of him. And we kind of stopped on one of the panels. It was the panel where the general's got his feet propped up and he's back, but in the composition of that room, everything, like he was framed in a triangular composition surrounded by like his trophies of his hunts. Like there was a dead, there was the bearskin rug, there was a ox or whatever above him. And then his gun was there, and he was kind of framed in it. As he was kicking back, his shoes were off. He was in the ottoman. But then the leading lines of his room went to the window, and in the window, it was the Capitol building was framed in there. And, when you break that down, you're like, it's shoved off in the corner, but it just tells you how powerful the general is, that he's not just some low-level grunt. This guy is a powerful guy. And you know, and, you know, but the background informed a lot of that. It was, you know, he had like golf clubs in there. So you got the idea the guy, he's a man's man, so to speak. He liked to hunt. He was, you know, likes to play a round of golf. He's, you know, when the workday's done, he's going to kick back with a drink, you know, and enjoy it.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
It's all extremely deliberate.
Deliberate.
And you're right. You just know this man.
Yeah.
You just know this man. You feel this guy. You got, you know, the story takes place, you know, in the early 60s, but he is living in the 50s. He is, he is one of those guys. And it's just, you're right. How long is that scene? You know,
it's short. It's a very short scene, quick scene.
Yeah, but it's all there.
You feel it. You feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and these are the things I'm thinking about truly when I got to flesh out a background and I just want to blast past it. Like, I can't just like have a picture with a tree or whatever. It's like, I got to do something here. You know, what do I want to say?
Yeah.
And then there you are, you're paralyzed. Like, I need to story tell my backgrounds.
It's intense.
And if that's what
right?
that is what we're doing. We're working on our own stuff, especially in book form, is we're constantly answering that question. What do I want to say? You know, Danielle, my wife, she's learned over all the years. She's like, I know just even the clock that's in the scene, you made it that time because of that's your favorite number, or that's this, or that's whatever, you know, and that sort of thing, you know, and or pictures that you've put in there. There is always a deliberate choice to it, especially because we draw it. And so we do visual storytell with that. And we're hoping it's propping up and adding to what you're feeling throughout it all, and adding to it. So yeah, there's deliberate. That's why I love about Julian seeing the posters and stuff like that. That's what's so great.
Yeah.
Yep. That was a very astute question, Julian. So it was kudos.
5-minute warning for me. 5-minute warning.
All right.
I'm hearing rumblings upstairs, and actually I think they're starting to watch TV. I'm getting a bad Wi-Fi connection.
All right. So, all right. Well, having said that, so let's talk just real briefly the last 5 minutes about Juniper then. So what, so, all right, what can we say about, what can we you know, say about Juniper, besides it was a great show and we had a great time making it? Is there anything, you know, about the show, Judd, that you have like a favorite story that, you know, about the making of it that we haven't shared with anybody?
I'll tell real quick that Mike came to work on the show because why the hell were you even there at Cartoon Network that day? Why were you there?
Okay, you know what was so funny?
Why were you there?
I was there to see Randy Myers about something else. And he's like, what are you working on? I was like, I'm in between stuff. And I think you and I had just seen each other at the Las Vegas comic convention, like months before something. We'd encountered each other again. And it was before, while you were still developing. And I remembered you saying you're working on it. Anyway, I was talking with Randy and he's like, you know, they're looking for someone. He goes, Judd, do you know Judd? I'm all, yeah, I know Judd. I'm all, wait, Judd's project's here? And so we walked over to your door and I think I left a Post-it or I left a note at your door or near your door. And either you got it and we called, I came back, but I remember it was just like ships passing, and it was like, wait, he's here and I have a window and we could do this and let's talk.
Well, it went from like, you stopped by, you said hello, left me a note, you were back for like another thing, and then, you know, I said, well, and I'm there like asking, like, would you be possibly interested in doing character design for the show?
Oh gosh.
It's like, and like, yeah, I would love that. Like, oh my God, like, you know, I was having an outer body experience because I couldn't think of how the show could possibly look any better than having you design the characters. It was like, I was just like, oh my God. It was really just pure kismet, because we were struggling actually looking at character designs. We're having a really hard time because I'm a cartoonist, but I don't know how to do turns. I'm not a designer. I don't have that deep a bench like that. And you just literally walked through the door. It was a perfect like marrying of things, because
you would be able to speak visually to me and go, I'm thinking of something like this. I'm thinking of this. I don't know how many times we go into a meeting and you'd already have a bunch of Post-its that you had ideas, and so we could speak visually. And so I'd go back and I'd be like, okay, I know. He pointed me in. You know, he gave me a compass. I know exactly.
I would half draw them as like do this, but Kunkelize it. You know, we called it that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Just go Kunkelize it. It'll be, you know, there we go.
You had the 27 Yankees for your creative team for.
It was, you know,
it was
and I honestly,
fun. It was fun.
I wish we could have kept going, because I mean, we actually ended the show on a cliffhanger. Our Brazilians here can actually attest to that. It ended with Jody figuring out that Juniper had superpowers.
That's right.
And it ended right there. I almost want to ruin the very, very ending of the show. Did I ever tell you guys how it's actually ever supposed to, like, I had an ending. I was playing to an ending.
I don't think so.
All right, Chuck, go ahead.
What's the ending?
It's so part of it I should bring up that so we learn, I forget what season 2 maybe, that Juniper is actually trapped in Orchid Bay City.
Yeah.
That she wasn't actually supposed to be the Tetsuan-Z, that it was supposed to go to her dad, but for some reason it passed over him, and she as a child was saddled with the responsibility of doing this, so she's stuck there. So I'm gonna get choked up. So what's gonna happen in the end? What was gonna happen in the end was we were gonna have like a big like 2-parter or something, where we fight it out with whatever we fight it out. And Ray accidentally, through a spell type thing, has to get Juniper's powers to save the day. He finally gets powers. And he gets to save Juniper, he gets to save the day. And with that, because there's 2 of them now, Ama walks her to the border of the city and says, go. And she steps outside and she can go now. It's like, there's 2 of you. You can come and go as you please. And Ray said, you can go too when she's here, because I'm not leaving. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's like, it's the best day of my life. You know, and he's happy as hell.
Yeah.
And that's where we, and it ends with Juniper, because she wanted to be an astronaut. That was the thing, that it's going to be her going to space camp. And we end with this montage of Juniper like at space camp, Ray like kicking butt, Jody, who is going to become a part of the Scooby Gang because she finds out. Yeah. So she was going to be a part of it, and that's how we were going to.
Yeah, that would have been a fun one day.
And the special farther down the line is them having to go to space because she can see a monster on another planet.
Who's planning to attack Orchid Bay? So there you go.
So real quick, I found a bunch of sketches. Both I had them in files and online, but I wanted to bring them up real quick. Can I share?
Yeah, you can share.
Yeah.
Mike, you can share.
Let me share. It won't let me.
Really?
Yeah. That's weird.
Hold on. Oh, you know what, Mike? I know why. It's something that they just started with Zoom. Go ahead. You can share now.
Oh, because, yeah.
I don't know why. Like, it has to come from me, the host.
No, that's all good.
I learned that last night because it seems to be a new thing. There we go.
So this was one of the first ones that I did that I just did like some color of her, and we were kind of exploring her, but it was early on. It's a little low res, but we were exploring her and playing with the colors and stuff. And then this was the packet that was getting the shapes down. And I always crack up at this because this over here, I'm like, I love what I was going for with this. It's going to be all slow on me now. This over here, fun little poses. These, where are her arms?
Yeah.
I always wondered that, Mike.
She has no, I was just going for the flow. I was just going for the flow of her, and I'm like, why did I not draw her arms? And I forgot. I was just like working out her shape and flow, and we just threw it on there, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, when we had those expressions, we were like, what? I was like, what?
And then this was a lot more refined with Millette cleaning it up, making it amazing, and then this stuff I always loved with the eyes. You know, don't make her cross-eyed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, keeping them just better like that. Monroe was so fun.
Awesome.
And then what I loved about it was I got to draw creatures. This is one of my most favorite things to do, and you gave me this perfect world to play in to just draw these ridiculous creatures and just run with them. And that was so much fun. And they little plants and grubs and ridiculous things and stuff. Viking ghosts. I remember Gabe and I going, yes, okay, let me have fun with that. This one, these were her aunts?
Yeah, her aunts, her aunties.
Okay.
Yeah, her aunties.
So what I loved was getting to see just the early pencil version of it.
Oh man, it's the best.
And these are originals. These are all done on paper. All this was paper stuff.
It always hurt me a little bit when they got cleaned up. I mean, both like, you know, when Alan colored them and Millette cleaned them up, of course they become their whole other thing. Yeah. But the fluidity of your pencil, of course, gets lost a little bit. You know, of course, it has to get animated, but you know, it's just like that first the first model page you put up without the arms, that page just kills me. It kills me. It's so beautiful, so wispy, you know. And look at Monroe, just kills me. Yeah, and I realize I do have something to show before we go. I can show these two things, but keep going, Mike. I'm happy to keep on
just a few more.
Okay.
I found a few more. The wrestling one.
The wrestling one. That's supposed to be.
That's the one I boarded. That's
based on Frank, right?
Yeah, no, Frank. Loosely, there's another one that actually is Frank. There's a definite.
There's a Frank monster.
Yeah.
Yes. For those playing at home, Kunkel would design monsters which are based on everybody who worked on the show.
Everybody got a monster. Everybody got one.
We did.
That's little tiny Ray Ray. It's Ray Ray when he was like, it was the babysitting episode when they were little.
This was fun. And then we did comics.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did a couple 8-page stories, 2 or 3 8-page stories, and these were the roughs that then Millette.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot all about
Mike
those.
Jerome. Yep.
Yeah, I forgot all about those. I remember you guys.
This was based on that 50s like monster.
Yeah, we just made it was a monster movie one, right? That's what we think about.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, wait. Then I have 2 things to show here. I got to take you all mobile. Hang on a second.
Go ahead.
I didn't realize. Taking around my office here. I'm gonna get the lights on here. The light is already on. I gotta go low. So I'm in my studio at my house. Okay, now we're in the dark. Forgive me. I'll make this out.
There it is.
Check that out.
So this is the door to my studio here. We got
it's little Juniper.
Yeah, I mean I blew them up.
Oh yes.
I just love them so damn much. I did. It just killed me.
She's so little.
I know. It was one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite things you did, and that's on my studio door. And then, hang on, as I take you all. All right, so this is my very fancy studio downstairs. We're gonna get a quick tour. Hang on. So as we come up here, this is the door that leads downstairs to my studio, and we got that.
I still have mine.
That's the Judd monster.
That's a Judd monster. I have the Dave monster too. So I got something to share too. Are you done sharing, Judd?
I'm done sharing.
All right, I'm going to share mine then real quick.
Oh, that's great.
So let's see here. All right, here we go. So these were the color boards from Alan Bodner for Off of the Boards that I did. And let's see here. Can I scroll? Yeah. And then here's the title sequence.
Your boards.
Yeah. Now, this is the title sequence for the show.
Such a great. It was all there. So clear.
It's so funny because I boarded this. I swear to God, I think I boarded this in less than a week. Like, you know, we were between seasons, right? That was kind of how that went. We were between first and second season. I was the only board guy that was kept around. So
and me and Phil animated the whole thing.
Yeah, you did, Mike.
Yeah, y'all did.
Yeah.
And it's the best animation we had on the show. Obviously, I mean, it always happens with title sequences anyway, so we might as well do it. But
But it's all
God
there.
almighty,
It's so
like-
clear. The boards were so clear.
Well, you know, it's funny
Oh,
because Alan and I
the
talked.
drumming, you know, Ray playing the drums in the opening sequence,
Yeah.
you know, Juniper playing the guitar. I mean, this is like, you know, it's really just ridiculously spot on.
Well,
You know, so beautifully rendered.
Alan and I went into Alan's office because when you gave me tasked me the honor of doing this, I went in there and I sat with Alan and we were talking, and I said, I have a couple of ideas, and this was the first idea. It was Juniper like playing guitar. I said, you know, I think that I should do something with that to show like a personal life and Alan was like, hey Dave, you know what'd be fun if you took like, you know, you transitioned into stuff.
Hey, Dave.
And I said that as soon as he said that to me about transitioning into different things, honest to God, like it was almost like it boarded itself. Like it was just like, okay, how do I get to the guitar strings? And like it was just finding those beats of like, how can you do this stuff?
Yeah, one of your students just pointed out, yes, scratching the walls and
Yeah.
going into the guitar strings. Was just
Yeah,
brilliant.
you know.
You had the
And
best transitions in this. They worked so great.
They did.
Yeah.
I mean, it was because it was just like I knew the characters and it just worked. Like everything, like even transitioning from the head of the guitar to the dragon head, you know, it's like, yeah, that's the last board that I have with that. I don't know where the other part of it went to. But this is, you know, but yeah, like Mike, you animated this brilliantly. Like,
Yeah.
and
it's
I
really
certainly
something
gave you like this shot with the dinosaur.
Yeah,
I certainly gave
riding
you
the
your work.
skateboard. It was all there. Yeah, and
Yeah, but it was like a skateboard park. Like, yeah, that was the
Yep.
idea. It was like, you know, and it's coming out of the mummy, you know, unwrapping it, you know, and she comes spinning through. It was like, it was just fun. It was just so much fun to do. Like, it was such a great show. I had such a fun time working on it. You know, even changing the aspect ratio, you know, it went from like that, and then you put the bars in and had them, you know, it was,
Yeah, it was super clever. Yeah.
so it's just so
Who
much. Yeah, it
knows?
was so
Maybe
much
with
fun.
HBO Max, we get another shot at it. What's
Hey,
fun
there
about
you
that
go.
is that, well, I'd like to think we're all better at what we do now, so it'd be a lot more interesting.
Yep.
You know,
I
mean,
think it would be a lot of
honest to
fun.
God, I would breeze into with such a level of confidence with you know, having this gang back together again.
Yeah.
You kidding me? Forget about it.
It'd be very fun.
Yeah, you know, it's if Zack Snyder can do it with the Snyder cut, we should have the Winnick cut of Juniper. You should be able to finish your story. Like that's something too that kind of, you know, maybe it's a beauty in it in the fact that she lives on without having, you know, her resolution. But it certainly would be fun to work on that episode for sure.
Yeah.
Wrap stuff up. So, well, on that note, we'll wrap this up. So, Judd, thank you for being here. You're awesome as always. I love having you. I love talking to you, my friend. I wish we were closer. We could hang out. And once we're kind of through the COVID stuff, maybe, you know, we'll have to head up to the Bay Area, or you guys come down here to LA, and you know, we'll have to go to dinner and go out and catch up a little bit.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. Yes, life will return to normal soon. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always nice seeing you because it's such a favorite time in my life working with you guys. So it's always nice to see, you know, It always brings back good memories. So, you know, it's always nice. And Mike, you're awesome as always. You know, you are truly, you know, both of you are mensches. So it's, you know, I can't tell you how Mike, you're one of the only people I would put my Zoomcast, move it to get you on. So
I appreciate it. Thank you. I thank you everybody for coming. I appreciate everybody coming in and listening to us. And seeing us
do you guys have a website? Is there, Mike, you said the Astonish Factory, you put it up, right?
Yeah, just the Astonish Factory.
How about you, Judd? Is there anything that
I can go to my website, except it's like it's been like out of commission for several years. It's just Judd's Pillow Fort. But if you want to see what I'm doing, the book series is called Hilo, and again, because it comes out from a small independent publisher called Random House, you can find that pretty much anywhere they sell books. So I'm lucky in that respect.
All
right. So it's all good.
Thanks for gracing me with your presence. So
no, please, sir. Thank you. This was a blast.
We'll do it again. Hope to do it again.
Yes.
I'd love
so
to.
you guys stay safe. I love you both, and hopefully we'll all be able to get together sooner than later. So
that'd be great.
And Judd, I owe both of you. We'll have to go. I'll take you out to dinner. We'll go somewhere nice, like not McDonald's. We'll go somewhere like Wendy's or Burger King. It'd be really good. Maybe
Someplace
Popeyes.
someplace
Someplace
Classy.
classy. Maybe Popeyes. We'll see. All right, guys. Love you. Thank you.
Love you
Bye,
too. You be
everybody.
well.
We'll
Y'all
talk
take care.
soon. Thanks.
Be well,
Bye.
everyone. Take care.
Be
Bye.
safe, everybody. Take care out
Yep.
there.
Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Mike.